Trailers of the East Coast here in Mocksville, North Carolina. Coming to you today to talk a little bit about tow vehicle and trailer maintenance and important parts of the vehicle and of the trailer that you need to check out at the beginning of every trailering season and before you go on any long trips. We actually have a checklist that we put together. There'll be a link to this down below this video here in the description, and we'll also have it posted on our website, so you can actually download this, keep it in your vehicle, keep it in your trailer, and have a nice list of things that you can check off as you go through your checkouts. But we're going to start today with our tow vehicle. I'll show you a few things that you need to check out as far as under the hood and also around the vehicle, just to make sure that your maintenance is up to date and also that it's safe. Then we'll work our way back to the trailer and wrap everything up at the end. Now, under the hood, everybody's tow vehicle is going to look a little bit different. Obviously, today what I'm showing you is a gas engine. You may also have a diesel truck or any different type of vehicle. This particular one is a gas V8. And I'm going to show you just a few of the things that you need to check out before you go towing or at the beginning of every season, just to make sure that your vehicle's in tip-top order and is not going to break down on you on the road. The first thing that you always need to check is all of your fluid levels. Now, these are located in very similar spots in most vehicles. On this particular vehicle, the big ones that you really need to check, of course, are your brake fluid, as well as your transmission fluid, engine oil, coolant, and power steering fluid, which you actually really can't see from this angle, but is located down on the side of the engine, and the cap is usually very clearly labeled. Now, each manufacturer has different procedures for checking these fluid levels, so check in your owner's manual and make sure that you check that level in accordance with the manufacturer's procedure to ensure that your readings are accurate. Other things that you want to check at the beginning of a towing season or before any large trip is to make sure that your battery is in good charge, has a good level of electrolyte in the cells if it's openable. Some new batteries nowadays are actually sealed and you can open the cells up to check. But if your battery has removable caps, then absolutely you can purchase a tool at any auto parts store that usually costs about $5 or $10 called a hygrometer that'll allow you to actually check the level of the electrolyte in the cells. And it's very important, especially at the beginning of summer or at the beginning of winter when there's a big temperature change, to make sure that battery's in good order so it doesn't leave you stranded somewhere. Also, another important thing to check on your battery is to check the voltage. This can be accomplished using a voltmeter or multimeter, and actually most shops or auto parts stores will test them for you under load and also just sitting to make sure that the voltage is proper and the battery is fully charged. Another part that you need to check on the engine before you go towing too far is your belt drive. Some engines, older engines typically will have a V-belt style system. Newer belts, or newer engines, excuse me, will have most likely a serpentine belt style system, which are easy to tell apart. A serpentine belt will be flat with ribs on the bottom, where a V-belt, just like the name implies, is actually a V-shaped belt. Important things to check on these belts include looking for cracks, looking for any kind of fraying or tearing around the edges, and also looking at the back of the belt to see if there's any what they call glazing. Glazing is a shiny appearance to the belt, and you'll often know if your belt is glazed because it will either squeak, squeal, or even produce a chirping sound. And all those can be easily remedied by replacing a belt. Now we'll take a walk around the truck and I'll show you a few other things to check out. Now, on the wheels and tires of your tow vehicle, it's very important to check a few things. First off, before every trip, make sure that all of your lug nuts are torqued to your manufacturer's specifications, which can usually be found in your owner's manual. You also want to take a look at your tires. You want to check them for proper inflation, which normally on most vehicles will be listed on the driver's side door pillar inside. Usually there's a label that'll show the manufacturer's recommended pressure. You also want to check your tires and make sure that there's no dry rot, which it takes the appearance of little cracks on your sidewalls, almost like a dry lake bed. You also want to check for any damage, which includes bulges, any kind of punctures, nails, screws, bolts, anything like that. And you also want to check and make sure that there are no bulges in the tread, which may indicate a tire that might be delaminating, or maybe one that has some damage from where you might have hit a pothole or another object in the road. Another important thing to check is the wear on your tires. You want to check two things. First is tread depth. which can easily be accomplished by a small object most people have in their pocket, which is just a penny. What you can do is take your penny, turn it upside down so that Lincoln is standing on his head, and then stick it into your tread all the way across your tire. If the tread touches the top of Lincoln's head or goes any further, that means you've got at least 5/32 of an inch of tread depth left, which is most manufacturers' minimum specs. So you want to check all the way across the tire and make sure that in each groove it matches up, and in this case, in this tire, it does. What you'll also want to do is check your tire and make sure that where it's even all the way across, that maybe you're not wearing thin on one side of the tire or thin on the outside of the tire, because that could indicate a problem with the suspension or with the alignment that you need to correct before you go towing. You'll also want to check the condition of your brakes. You'll want to look at, in this case, this particular truck has disc brakes all the way around. Some trucks in the rear here will have drum brakes in the rear. For disc brakes, you'll want to check and make sure that your rotors have no grooves and no visible cracks in them. That could indicate a failure of the rotor, which would also necessitate replacement. And you'll also want to, if possible, take a look inside the disc brake caliper and see how much pad you have left. Now, obviously, it's very difficult with the wheel and tire and everything on the truck to measure how much pad you have left, but generally speaking, if you can see that you've got at least 1/8 of an inch or maybe a little bit more pad left on your front and rear pads, then you'll be more than fine and within specification for towing. Most brake pads nowadays have what they call a squeal tab on them that'll actually cause the brakes to squeal loudly when the pads have reached their minimum depth, so you'll know when to replace them. Now, making our way back around to the back of your tow vehicle, one of the other important things that you'll want to check is the condition of your hitch and receiver. Now, each hitch is attached a little differently depending on the type of tow vehicle and depending on the type of hitch that you have. If you're using a tag-along setup like this with a bumper hitch, what you'll want to do is actually once a year, once a season, get up underneath the vehicle and check and make sure that all the hardware that attaches that hitch to the frame is secure and is tight. Because especially if you've had one installed on a vehicle that didn't come with one from the factory, the bolts can work loose over time, and it's a good idea just to get underneath it and make sure that they're torqued up. You'll also want to make sure that your hitch receiver tube and all your connections underneath here are free of rust, just for the simple fact that if your receiver tube is full of rust, it's going to make it really hard to get this bar in and out if you need to adjust to different sizes for different trailers. So take a wire brush to it, maybe take a can of black spray paint and touch up any spots where there's any rust, just to make sure that it stays rust-free and in good condition for you. And finally, we want to make sure that all the safety equipment on our vehicle is functioning properly. That includes checking and making sure that your headlights, both your low beams and your high beams, your parking lights and turn signals work, and also making sure with a quick bump that the horn works as well. That'll make sure that you're safe not only to yourself but to other drivers on the road.